Hello and welcome to the first video in this tutorial series on Inkscape. Inkscape's a free open source vector graphics editor which allows you to work in scalable vector graphics, and it also allows you to open up Adobe Illustrator files as well, which are in an AI format. To get started, we're going to need to download the software. So if we go over to Google, I've put Inkscape into Google and the first result that pops up is inkscape.org. If we go straight into this, we want to go to downloads. To download the software, we want the current version. Right now this gives us an option of platforms depending on what you're using. You download the software for your system. I'm using Windows, so I'll click on Windows. Now I've got a choice of 32-bit or 64-bit architecture. I'm 64-bit. If you don't know what your computer is, if you go down to the Start button and right click, we go up to System, click on System, and up pops information about your computer. Down in Device Specifications, it will tell you system type, 64-bit operating system. So mine's a 64-bit. So I'll click on the 64-bit architecture. And then we get a choice of different formats to install the software. I'm just going to go with Windows Installer Package. And after a short time, it'll pop up a save window. All you do is save it, open it up, and install the software. I've already done this on my computer, so I'm going to skip that bit. Once you've finished downloading and installing your software, if you open up Inkscape, you should be presented with a workspace similar to this. If yours looks different to this, if you go up to View and down to Default, click on Default, and that should lay out your icons in a similar manner to mine. Right, let's have a look at the tools. So to start with, if you press 5 on your keyboard, it'll fit your page to your screen. We can move our canvas around. If you click down, press down on the scroll wheel, you can drag your canvas around. Another way of moving your canvas around is if you press Control on your keyboard, you can use the arrow keys to move around your canvas. If we press 5 again, we can center it. What else do we need to know? Zoom. If you press Control and roll your mouse wheel, you can zoom in and out. That, with dragging your canvas around, you can find where you want to get to and get it scaled to the right size. So let's take a look at the tools we've got available to us down the left hand side. The first two tools are the Select tool and the Nodes tool. I'll go over those in a second. First we're going to have a look at the predefined shapes. The first predefined shape is our rectangle tool. So if we use the left mouse button, we can drag out a rectangle. If you notice, our rectangle has two square handles and one circular handle. The square handles are just used to change the dimensions of our rectangle. The round handle is for rounding off the corners. So if we drag down on our round handle, they'll evenly round the corner. If we wanted the vertical and the horizontal distance of our rounded corner to be different, then we can drag out the second circle, and that allows us to independently vary the distance on each of the axes. Going down the left hand side, the next tool is the circle tool or ellipse tool. Again, we can drag out, holding down our left mouse button, a circle or ellipse. Obviously we want a circle, we want to constrain it to exactly a circle. So if you press down on Control, it allows you to constrain the shape to a circle. Same goes for the rectangle tool. If we use the rectangle tool, if we hold down Control, we can drag out a perfect square. With the circle tool, we've got the two square handles again, which allow us to change the dimensions. But the circular handle is slightly differently on this one. This allows us to create arcs and slices or segments. So if your cursor is on the outside of your ellipse, it creates this segment effect. And if you move it to the inside, it creates an arc. Now we can move these sides of the arc independently, giving you a little bit more control. If you want to just change it back to a circle, oh, I'm on rectangle tool. Let's get to our circle tool. If you want to change it back to a circle, at the top we've got options. So you can take a look at the options. You've got different options, but if you want to just change it back to a circle or an ellipse, we can just click on this end one and it fills it in for us. Going down the left hand side again, our next one is polygons and stars. So if we click on that, at the top you can choose between polygons and stars. It's set on stars at the moment. You can decide how many corners you want, and we've got a few different ratios. We've got 5 corner star at the moment, so we can drag out a 5 corner star. I've obviously adjusted this slightly. So then we can, by moving around our handles, we can change the shapes of our star. We can actually cross over and create some interesting patterns. We can change the number of corners. Hold on, let's get that looking more like a star again. If we add, we can add more corners, as it puts, but more spokes to our star, or arms to our star. And if we change to polygons, then it just creates a polygon with however many sides. The next tool we've got is our 3D cube. So we can just drag out a 3D cube. If you notice, the blue axis are parallel, whereas these ones have vanishing points. We can adjust this. If we go to our top, by the way, this section here, for each tool, it gives you the options for each tool. So if we're on square, it gives you the options for your square tool. Circle, it gives you the options for your circle, and so forth. On our cube, 3D cube, we can either choose the angles that we've got these at. We can make the lines parallel, depending on what you're trying to achieve. If you're trying to draw a drawing with perspective, then you could create vanishing points to make your buildings look like they go into the distance, if you're making buildings, that is. If you're just doing isometric drawings, then you can keep the lines parallel. And lastly, we've got spirals in that section. So again, we can stretch out spiral depending on what settings we got in our options. At the moment, so we've got inside radius. The inside radius is from the center to the first point. So if we want it to spiral all the way to the center, we want that set to 0. So we just set that to 0. It'll take us all the way to the center. Divergence, if we set that to 1, all of our spirals or turns of the spiral are even. If you change this, you can see it increases in size the further out it comes, like a snail shell. Or you can go the other way and have it decreasing. Turns is just the number of turns that it manages, so if we increase that, it'll just increase the number of turns. So there are 5 different tools that we've got available in the predefined shapes. One thing that is useful to be able to do is change colours. If you want to put an outline or a stroke on your shape, we can do this. If we come up the top, the picture or the icon with a little brush on will open up our stroke, path and stroke dialog box, or sorry, fill and stroke dialog box. So we've got options here. We've got fill, stroke paint, and stroke style. Now fill, let's select. So we go up to our select tool, click on the select tool. This allows us to select things, move them around. It gives us these handles, so we can scale our shapes with these handles. If we click on our object again, it gives us rotation handles. The corners are for rotation, and these straight handles allow us to skew our object. So you want to have a little play with those, get used to them. Going back to our fill and stroke box, the fill is our colour. So now we've got an object selected, we can adjust our colour. You've got a choice of different methods for changing it, whatever you prefer. I know a lot of people like the wheel, so you can just rotate it round to the colour you want and then adjust the shading or the bright and darkness of your colour. So that's the fill. At the top you'll notice we've got different options, so we can do gradients, radial gradients, which I'll go into later on. We have a dropper tool if you wanted to select a colour from your image, and down the bottom we have blend modes, which just allows you to control how your different objects interact with each other when layered. The blur tool can be handy if you want to blur something out. This is quite handy if you want to do shading on an object. We'll look at that later. And opacity is how see-through your shape is. In our colour range, we also have an alpha channel. Now this allows us to determine how transparent the colour is, or our fill is. So although we're making our, hold on, let me just drag this down so we can see that we can see through it. Let's take that to the top, so we can see through our shape to the red circle underneath. If we take our alpha channel back up, it becomes completely opaque again. But if you notice, although we can see through our shape, the shape's opacity is still 100%. It's just purely because we've changed the fill opacity using the alpha channel. So just be aware of that if you can't work out why your objects are see-through when your opacity is at 100%. The next tab we've got at the top here is stroke paint. So at the moment we haven't got it, it's on nothing. If we click on to solid colour, you should be able to see that let's zoom in a bit, we've now got an outline. Again, you can choose your colours accordingly, so we can change the colour of the outline. So now we've got a green outline. Let's take it back to black so we can see it nice and clearly. If we now go to stroke style, this allows us to change the width of our stroke. So we can increase the width of our stroke, we can decrease it, and it also gives us some other options. So for when you're stroking the path or putting an outline on the path, the main ones to look at are, hold on, let's go into our, what do we want, our square tool. If we just unround these corners, go back to our select tool, so we've got nice sharp corners. Might have to zoom in a bit. We've got different joints. So if we click on a rounded joint, it's rounded. Hold on, let's get a bit closer so we can see. So the joint, if you want to round the joint, we can click on that one. If we want it a beveled joint, is that what they call it? Or is it a beveled joint? We can click on the center one. Or if you just want it square, we can go for the mitered joint. If we got a path or just a line that ends, then we can change the caps. So we can just have it going straight across, we can have it rounded, or we can have it square again, but going around the end of the line or the end of the path. That become clear once we draw a few lines. Yeah, I think that's all we need to cover on that. So we press 5 on the keyboard again, just to zoom back out. So carry on looking at our tools on the left hand side. The next tool is the Bezier tool. If we click on this one, this allows us to draw. So we left click, move your mouse, left click again, and when you've drawn what you want to draw, you press enter, and that'll create a path. Now this is where our select and node tools come in. If we zoom in a bit so we can actually see our path, if we go to the nodes tool, we can actually change the shape of our path, creating these nice curves. If we click on a node, you'll see it has handles. Now these adjust how the path is formed. So if we want, when we're drawing a line, we go back to the Bezier tool, we can click, drag out a line, but this time we're going to hold down the left mouse key and pull it out, so we can put these handles on and create curves as we draw. Another thing to note is if you drag out to get a curve, but you want it to be a corner, you can press your shift and then drag round the handle, and you can create smooth curves going to a sharp corner. Another thing we can do is we can create closed shapes. So if we go back, once we get over to the square and it turns red, if we click it, then it creates a closed shape. So this is a closed path. Again, we can go to our nodes tool, we can adjust them by dragging the actual sides. We can go to individual nodes, do the handles. If you want to pull the handle out on the other side, you can just grab the line, move it, and then get hold of the handle. If we look at the top, you've got a few different options that we can use. The main one we're looking at is these four here. We can change how the node behaves by clicking on these. We can make selected nodes symmetrical, so it lines up the two handlebars, and it makes them even distance from the center. So you can see as we change it, it changes both sides. We can make them work independently. So now we can create our corners but still have these nice smooth curves coming away from it. What else can we do? If we double click on this, it gets rid of the handles, so it just goes back to being a point. Then if you want to create the handles again, we'll have to drag them out. So just drag on the line a little bit and that'll create a handle, and then you can move the handle around independently. Yeah, I think that's enough for that. The next two are freehand drawing tools. So the pencil tool just allows you to draw freehand. So while you're holding down the left mouse button, you can draw freehand. We do have different options available to us. We can smooth. So when we let go, it automatically smooths depending on how much smoothing you want. This allows you to draw but still end up with a nice smooth curve. We can use shapes. So if you notice, this is basically stretched a triangle along the line, so it starts off thick at one end and goes thin at the other. If you're interested in this one, this is if you're using a graphics tablet, you can make it responsive to the pressure of your pen. Right, moving down to our next tool, the calligraphy or brushstroke tool. This one allows us to create basically calligraphy writing. So we're using an angled tip to make these drawings. We've got different preset, different options up there. I think some of this is to do with the thickness of our stroke. So if we take, so if we take down the thickness of our stroke, we can vary what our calligraphy pen does. The next tool down is a text tool. So if we click on this, click anywhere, we can write in DFS, a bit of advertising there. We can type out our letters. We can go up to the top. If I can get it to work, there we go. We can go down, we can change our font. Different fonts, that one doesn't have any selection. Different fonts have different options. So if you find a font, maybe Gothic, does that have anything? No, normal. Anyway, some fonts have bold, normal, fine. So you can change the style. You've got size, so we can change the size of our font. And we've got some other more advanced tools along the side. Perhaps go into those later on. I think they're the main tools you need for the time being. Up the top in this section, we can open up different dialogues or dialog boxes. We've already used the fill and stroke. Other ones that are useful to start with are align and distribute objects. This allows you to space things out evenly. You have relative to, so you can have a selection area, or you can have last selected. So if you select two objects, say we go for, let's get the select tool, we go for this one, we're set to last selected. So when we hold Shift and click on the second object and then go up to the align, we can align them so they're essentially in a line. So it's moved it over, and it's moved it over to line up with the last selected object. So that way you can go round. So now this one is the last selected. So we've got all 4 objects selected. So if we line them up, it'll line them up to this line down here. There we go. Now they're all neatly in line. Not that you can tell with all the mess in the way. But tell you what, let's clear some of it, delete some of it. Yeah, so that's align and distribute. Right, I think that's all I want to cover in this video. In the next video, we'll have a look at how we can combine shapes and add gradients to our fill and strokes. And yeah, we go from there. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.